Okay, it's time to talk about Magi, chapter 283. I apologize for the late upload, but work and class both getting to me. But I have some time, and so let's devote some time to talking about chapter 283, the beginning of the last arc. So this chapter had some very subtle, brilliant writing behind it, and I'll talk a little bit about it. But this chapter actually was really good for that reason. But um, let's start with the first cool thing. So um, let's talk about Alibaba's lack of dialogue and what this means. Well, if you notice something, the first line of dialogue that he actually has is when he has finally completed healing, when he has been rejuvenated completely. So, um, it's sort of, how do you want to say it? It's sort of like really cool symbolism where it's like, even though he's obviously spoken before, um, they didn't want to show him speak until he was completely, okay and ready to leave. It's just simple symbolism. So it was cool, and you know what it also did was, well, I'll get there actually. The second really brilliant thing is about how the exposition was laid out for us. Um, so if you notice, in a lot of the panels, we are seeing things through Ali's eyes. Like the color page, the very first page is him opening up his eyes and hearing Yunan. And in a lot of the pages we see things through his eyes, and as he's getting stronger, stuff like that. Uh, but the way we get exposition is Yunan talking to him. But there's something very interesting about the exposition that we got, and that's that we basically, it's also symbolism, is that we are learning, um, as Alibaba's learning, because we are in the dark, actually almost as much as he is. He was actually in the dark more than we were because he did not see what happened, um, with the Kanan Plains and everything that happened in the Co-Empire Civil War. So, um, and here's the brilliance of that, is that even though he knew less than we did, by the time that Alibaba is ready to leave, he knows as much as we do. Um, and Yunin, if you notice, did not repeat any of the information that we already knew. So, for example, he did not talk about the war. He did not talk about Cohen at all. Did not talk about Hakuryu winning the war or Sinbad taking over or anything like that. Nothing. No mention to the Kanan Plains. No mention to you know, I don't know, Kogyoku being taken over. Nothing of what Yunin said uh, is a recap from the previous arc. So basically, all the exposition that we see is the exposition that Alibaba also needs, but that we don't, that we also do. So we assume that all the stuff that we saw in the previous arc was told to him off screen, so that we don't have to. So I know that was like a roundabout way of explaining what I mean, but I think I really do need to drive that point home. Is that Shinobu Otaka did not waste our time with recapping, because we already knew that stuff because we saw it. The only things he told us were things that we needed to know. Um, so let's talk a little bit about the actual meat of the story, I suppose. So Alibaba's body was kept in like a temporary death state, but his body grew like so weak because there wasn't really anything he could do. Um, so like he had to slowly recover, obviously. And as obviously as we pretty much all predicted, 3 years have passed. Time skip. Let's see. Sinbad abdicating like pretty much all of Shindria, abdicating their positions, giving them to some kind of inheritance, like some kind of successor, whereas they've taken on a grander role in the peace that has gone on in like the Seven Seas, I guess, not just Shindria, because Ko Empire is now part of the um, Seven Seas Alliance, and apparently I think Rame has as well. So, basically we're saying that it's sort of like a utopia, even though we know it's not going to be quite that simple. Let's see. What else? Hakuryu, Alibaba, or not, Aladdin, Hakuryu, Morgiana, all disappeared at the same time. So, what this means, who knows? I mean, I'm assuming they're together at this point, or one's looking for the other. Uh, it's certainly interesting. Um, but yeah, let's see. Well, he kind of like Alibaba talks to Yunin about the whole David thing, um, and he basically tells him that he's half fallen into depravity. So Yunin didn't know that, which is interesting because I would have thought that Yunin knew that. Uh, let's see. Oh, and of course, it was pretty much offhandedly mentioned that he actually the time he spent speaking to people were actually magicians from Amaterasu. I don't remember if that was stated in the previous arc or not, but that like all that time that he spent was actually with magicians from Amaterasu. Um, so the knowledge he must have gained has been great, and I'm sure it's going to pay off in this arc, obviously. Let's see. Yunin, like, this chapter developed Yunin as well, because we got to see, like, more of a personal side of him, where, like, Sinbad to him was like an opportunity to change the world. And it's sort of like, I don't know, like, he wanted to make Sinbad the king vessel because he felt that Sinbad could change the world the way he wanted it to. And it sort of happened, but at the same time, he also can't trust Sinbad because he's just that good. Um, and he even says, Sinbad is a good guy. Uh, he doesn't really like. He has very conflicting feelings about Sinbad because he knows this thing about David, and he knows that he doesn't trust him. We knew that for a long time. Um, but he really likes Sinbad. He believes he's a good person, and so does Alibaba apparently. And so, the response he has that he wants to look closely with his own eyes. Um, I do like it because he's not like immediately antagonizing Sinbad. Um, so I really do like that. I mean, this whole chapter. I mean, there was a lot. There's a lot of exposition here. I didn't talk about all of it because even though it's all important, um, none of it really can really talk about it in depth because, well, I'm not going to tell you what happened since you read this fucking chapter. But yeah, that's it. This was a really good chapter. So thank you guys for listening. We'll see you all next time. Okay, so let's talk about 284 of Magi. Now, obviously, the big focus of this chapter was technology. Um, we can see as part of Sinbad's utopia. Uh, he's had some really big technological advances. Like, it seems very, very odd, but at the same time, if you think about Magnastat's technology, it's not too much of a stretch. So it's pretty obvious that Sinbad used Magnastat's technology and just pretty much expanded it. Uh, and so now they have like airships and shit. So, I mean, he's gonna be able to get back pretty quickly. Um, but yeah, it was kind of funny how like everybody's riding like magic carpets and like they all look like Aladdin. That was funny. But yeah, there's not a ton to this chapter actually, but I'll talk a little bit about some stuff. Alibaba is obviously apprehensive, and it keeps coming up, uh, like throughout the chapter, where he's apprehensive about his friends. Obviously, you know, where have they all disappeared to? And moreover, you know, what's going on with Sinbad? This whole David crap. And I didn't mention this in 283, but I should. This is a good time to mention it because I don't really have too much to talk about in this chapter. Um, but Arba, uh, the what is going on with Arba? Because when Yunin talked about Sinbad and all them abdicating the throne and giving them to a successor, what exactly does that mean for Sinbad? Because he doesn't have a kid as far as we know. I mean, well, that's not true. He probably has like 60 kids, but all of them are probably illegitimate. Um, I mean, I don't know. Did protection exist back in those days? I mean, it sure does now with all that technology, but either way, uh, maybe as a child with Arba, but it would be too young. Uh, so, I mean, if Sinbad does not have a successor, and obviously, like, Jafar would be the next, like, option, in my opinion, but at the same time, he seems to, he probably is doing his own thing, like, with Sinbad, so he probably has not taken over, but he could have. So, does that mean that Arba could possibly be ruling Shindria at this point? Um, because she's bound to come up sometime. Like maybe like there's certainly the option of um, like I'll tell you one scenario that I think is possible, and that's that she's obviously still playing it off as being Hakuei. Well, she is Hakuei technically, but Arba is possessing her. But the whole thing with Hakuei is that officially they could be married as Hakuei and Sinbad, um, even if they're not necessarily lovers. They could be married, and um, that's sort of the excuse that Sinbad has to keep Arba close by. Where that could also make it possible for her to be a successor to Shindria. I'm not saying that this is actual fact or that this is like my theory. I'm saying that this is a possibility. I see this as a distinct possibility. Tell me what you guys think about that potential of Hakuei and Sinbad being married, actually, where Arba is now um, technically sort of married to him so that they can be close. Because Hakuei has no incentive, like, she has no reason to be in Shindria or where with Sinbad. There's no incentive because you would think otherwise she would be by Hakuryu's side before he disappeared. That's that, of course. But that aside, I mean, before he disappeared, you would think she would be by Hakuryu's side unless there was a reason why she would not be, like an outlying circumstance, aka marrying Sinbad, which fits the bill of if she's going to be working with Sinbad, um, that makes sense. Why? Because, like, if you wanted to avoid suspicion, like, oh, all of a sudden Hakuei is getting close, like, all of a sudden Hakuei is advising Sinbad for what? For no reason. But if all of a sudden, like, oh, they're lovers, oh, okay, that makes sense. Uh, it wouldn't arouse suspicion. So I guess I'll finish up that because I don't want to ramble too long about that theory um, where it could work. Uh, Tell me what you guys think. So yeah, technology, uh, airships, and shit. Um, it is kind of interesting how like the ending text is Sinbad has created some kind of outrageous new world. And the ending, like the text says, in the next issue we will go inside the headquarters. So it's possible that we could have a meeting between, well, I wouldn't say between Alibaba and Sinbad quite yet, unless he's there in Rame. Um, but yeah, I mean, it seems like the meeting is gonna happen pretty soon before he finds Aladdin, Morgiana, and Hakuryu. Uh, that is assuming that they're actually like missing and not captured by Sinbad or whomever. Who knows? But anyway, I'm gonna end there. This chapter overall was not bad. So yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll see y'all next week.